to our next presenter, Dr. Anthony Birchood, who will be presenting a paper that looks at the impact of changing population dynamics on pension. Dr. Birchood, as I indicated, is a lecturer in the Department of Economics and is presenting a paper that is done jointly by himself and Mr. Michael Raymond. Anthony?
Thank you, Roger. And, well, good afternoon to everybody. Thanks for sticking around. The paper actually represents a cross-departmental paper because we have from Statistics, Godfrey St. Bernard, and then he sent across a student for me to supervise. That is Michael Raymond. And Michael Raymond is from the Ministry of Finance, the Pension Division. And Michael Raymond is currently supposed to be somewhere in London presenting a paper on behalf of the Trinidad and Tobago government on pensions. So it was left to me to come now and present something on projections from pensions. So that's what I'm trying to do. Now, my first slide was paying tribute to Professor Carl Theodore. He is not here. So probably I would skip it because he's not here. But no, somebody I must honor because he elected to me, just like he elected to many others. And I was always impressed with his knowledge of the most complicated things, like how those of us who did economics will know about Hall variant and how complex the micro theory is. And he was able to do that and break it down simply. So I'll compliment him again when I see him. All right. Now, I, as Roger said, was formerly at Caribbean Center for Money and Finance. That's based right here on campus. And I had organized a seminar on pension fund. And that seminar, I had the leading actuaries from around the world. Most of them were working at the international institutions like IMF, World Bank, IFC, ILO, and so on and so on. But they were all actuaries. And we had from Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, and Jamaica as well. So in that seminar, we would have done, well, a lot of issues concerning pensions were highlighted in that seminar. And why I mention this is because Professor Theodore himself was trying to, well, he was also doing work on old age pensions and what are the implications for pensioners. So I thought it was a nice link with what I was doing at CCMF at the time. And so when I was asked by Mr. Martin Franklin to do a presentation on pensions, I said, yes, I am very happy to do that. So here it is now, I'm doing something on pensions. Now, in this you will see I mentioned the history of pensions because, you know, many of us doesn't bother to check back to see how old age pensions started. Old age pensions, as you can see in the first point, started in 1889 in Germany. Yeah, so Germany was the first place to start old age pensions. And they were followed by New Zealand. They went to one or two other countries. Eventually, it went to the UK in 1908. And it then went to Barbados. So they were the first Caribbean colony. No, they weren't colony again. Yeah, colony still. Right. And so they adopted it in 1937, 38. Trinidad and Tobago, we adopted it in 1939. Guyana, 1944. And then afterwards, other Caribbean countries adopted pensions. So that's a point just to say that we didn't always have old age pensions before. And I suppose a point to my, what's her name again, Miss May? Rosa, okay, Miss Rosa. Because she's concerned about what will happen to old age pensions given contract labor. Yeah, so just making that point to say, well, you know, we trying to develop private pension schemes. and we're still trying to develop it. So it's still work in progress. All right. Now, there were some early setbacks why we didn't all, or why we weren't able to rush off into old age pensions from the start. One of it was most of us were agricultural producers, and therefore people had what they call seasonal employment. So they work more when the product is booming, and when the product is not doing well, then they get laid back. So that was one. The other thing is we suffered high unemployment, as if you all remember your history, during the Butler riots in the 1930s, it was because people protested that the wages were low. And because the wages were low in the 1930s, then pensions, contributory pensions, weren't very attractive at the time. And the government then did a non-contributory pension, so that you have old age pension, and paid out of the treasury. So that's what happened. All right. Now, the issues have been, new issues have arisen. For example, we have now this impetus towards CSME, Caribbean Single Market Economy. And because we're trying to move towards a Caribbean Single Market Economy, people now are actually concerned about the portability of their pensions. So if you have pensions in Jamaica and you come to work in Trinidad, then they're concerned about whether your pension in Jamaica could be transferred to Trinidad or to Barbados or St. Vincent, wherever, right? But you want to be able to transfer your pension. So that's one. The other thing is that we're still trying to develop our capital markets so that pensions can be invested in capital markets. So that's another important thing that we still fighting to actually develop. Now, there are other points here, but I won't mention them because Roger told me that I have to wrap up as soon as I can. So I'll try, Roger, to wrap up as soon as I can, right? The big point I'm making here is that we have an aging population. Well, I guess everybody knows that, right? So what is happening here is that people are living longer. So, this morning when you all spoke about health, the gist of what you were speaking of was how to help people to live longer. No, that's good, right? But it's not good for pensions. You see, you all are taking too long to die. Well, I want to live long too, eh? Yeah, so because of the fact that people are living longer, it means then that it brings a whole slew of issues in the pensions. Like, for example, the burden of the national treasury, because people are living longer. So that comes up. So I doesn't dwell too much on the slides because Roger might hit me with the butter and run me. So move on, right? So this was about the aging challenge. Right. In CAICOM, we want to harmonize our pension schemes, but we have different legislations, and that makes it a little more complicated how to harmonize the pension schemes. Okay, this was about the fiscal pressure. Yeah, trying to move up faster. Right. Scenarios. In studying the pension scheme, now this is just one of the type of studies that could emerge from this research that was done, right? And in this particular research, we're looking at the growth of the population, and we're looking at the growth in 20 years, and what will be the implication for the national treasury in 20 years. So that's what we're trying to do. We want to see the growth, and we use different scenarios. So one being constant variations scenario. Our next scenario will be a high, very optimistic scenario. So I'm trying to do somewhere between those two extremes, low and high. But I have a medium to where, so low, medium, and high. All right. You'll see the last bullet. The high variant assumes that the population will grow to the 2%. So that's the high variant. And the constant variant will assume that growth rate remain as is. So you have steady increase in births. Death will remain as is as well. That rate will remain as is. And this is called the cohort method. And it is done by age group. So not just the general population as a whole. As somebody was talking about, the young people likely to be the ones to get HIV, and older people die from chronic diseases like diabetes. Well, that's the advantage of you looking at it in terms of age groups and calculating it by age groups. So this is what we did. And so we did projections. The importance of the age group is that you're able now to weight it according to the age group, because age groups have characteristics that will make them different. So the young people more prone to certain kinds of diseases like AIDS, and older people prone to other diseases like diabetes. And of course, you have other illnesses in between. All right. Oh, conclusion already. So Roger, you're smiling. All right. By using the cohort method, I was able to then have calculations. For example, for the constant method, we calculate that in 20 years, pensions will be about 4% of the national budget. And in the optimistic scenario, pensions, actually this is reverse, eh? Yeah, in the high scenario, meaning that pensions will, optimistic, pensions will work out to about 4%, and in the constant method, it will work out to be 7%. So what I'm saying here then is that this is a method that we can use to calculate the burden on national treasury of what pensions could be for the economy. Now, you see other economies, they are complaining of the same problem, aging population. All economies now seem to be saying the same thing. They have an aging population, and therefore they're concerned about what would be the burden on the national treasury of this aging population. And we have to start from now to forecast what will be the pressure, because we have to be able to put aside funds for old age pension, probably for people like me afterwards. All right? So my point is then that we are in a fortunate situation where we have mathematics and we need to do these kinds of calculations. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anthony.